Okay, now I want to discuss a game between Noteboom, who played white, and Doesburgh, who played black, played in Holland 1931. The opening is a Queen's Gambit Decline, ECO code D61. The game started out by D4, D5, C4, so the Queen's Gambit, E6, so the Queen's Gambit declined, and then Knight C3, Knight F6, Bishop G5, very typical moves. And now black plays Knight on B to D7, not typical. This actually invites white to looks like white can win a pawn, and it sets a trap for actually black to win a piece. The trap is looks like white can win a pawn by playing C takes D5, E takes D5, and then the knight just takes. That looks, because white's vision may be that maybe I should point it the other direction, that this knight here is pinned. But actually, this is how black actually wins a piece: as knight takes the knight, the bishop takes the queen, but then black has this reply of bishop to b4 check. Now the only way for white to get out of check is to play the queen to d2. So bishop takes queen, king takes bishop, and then black takes the bishop, and actually black wins a knight and white wins a pawn. So that's that continuation. So white can't actually win a pawn in this position. So actually it's white's fifth move, so white will play e3, strengthening the center and allowing this bishop on f1 room to get out. And now black will play c6, and this actually looks very similar to a semi-Slav. In fact, probably we continue to the semi-Slav. The semi-Slav may transpose into Queen's Gambit declined. I think the Cambridge defense or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Now, white plays a3 because the reason black played c6 is that it wanted to maybe get some counterattacking chances by playing the bishop here and the queen here, where it would pin and put a lot of pressure along this diagonal. So white plays a3. That way the bishop cannot move there, and sort of pointless now for black to continue in that line. So black plays bishop to e7, preparing for castling and unpinning the knight. White plays on its seventh move queen to c2, and the reason the queen goes to c2 is the focus on the square e4. Now basically black cannot play the knight here, which could be very annoying. So let's say if black tried to play the knight here on its seventh move, then white would just win a pawn by bishop takes, queen takes, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, queen takes pawn. So that doesn't work now. So the queen is guarding the e4 square. And in this position, actually, on black's seventh move, black castles, but black actually misses a prime opportunity to sort of get into the game. What I mean by that is black is sort of backed up or cramped up, and now is the time for black to sort of free its game by playing pawn takes. Now, normally black doesn't take this pawn unless this white bishop is setting on d3. But if the pawn takes, the bishop takes, and then black plays e5, freeing its game, allowing this bishop on c8 to get some room. And as you can see, after probably the eventual exchange of the e pawn, or these two pawns here, Black's game will be much or less cramped, but Black misses the opportunity, and Black castles. And now White on its 8th move will play knight to f3, now stopping the advance of e5. So now Black cannot play pawn takes and then the pushing the e-pawn, so that stops that plan for Black. Now Black plays a6 with the idea of taking the pawn again, then after the recapture by the bishop to play b5. And here White will play rook to d1. With the idea that if the pawns are exchanged off in the center, that the rook will be centralized. And then Black plays on its 9th move rook to e8 with the same concept that hopefully after some exchange of pawns that the rook will sit on a open or semi-open file. Now White plays bishop to d3, a common move in the Queen's Gambit, focusing on the h7 pawn. Now Black will take the pawn, White will recapture, Black will play b5, and the bishop will return. So I know I covered those moves quickly, but I covered the reason, we sort of saw this when Black played a6 on its 8th move, and it's White's 12th move. So now Black would like to play in this position, would like to advance the pawn to c5, and maybe this is the theme of the game now, is that really to free the game, Black needs to play this move c5. And what Black also wants to do is to play the bishop to here. But now White is going to go about preventing Black from playing c5 and freeing its game. So, but Black realizes it can't play c5 right away, because the reason is that if Black plays the move c5 right away, then White will take the pawn. And then the problem is if the knight takes, then White has this nice move of check, where the queen is then on an open line, so that doesn't work. And if the bishop takes, then White can just take the pawn because the knight is pinned. So that doesn't work. So Black cannot advance the pawn because it's going to at least lose a pawn. So Black plays h6 on its 12th move, sort of getting the h pawn sort of not to be on target, I guess is the best term. And now White will play on its 13th move bishop takes f6. The main reason is to keep the initiative. If it backs the bishop off, it probably will allow Black to eventually get in c5, freeing its game, so it wants to keep the initiative. Black will recapture with the knight. Probably, and also, if you look at it, it's then both the knight and the bishop were looking at the c5 square, as defenders of when the pawn is pushed. So now one of the defenders, or one of the pieces helping to support the pawn move to c5, has been moved. So now White on its 14th move will castle. Black will play bishop to b7, one of its objectives. And now knight d4. by white. So now white has 3 pieces, preventing c5. It has the queen, the pawn, and the knight. So black will remove the knight. White recaptures on its 16th move. And also it's hitting this pawn now twice, so white is now hitting the pawn twice. And it also prevents black. If you think about it, black can't also advance the pawn, or white would just snap off the bishop. I'll have to continue this in the next video.